Brock Masters here, coming to you from my underground bunker at my ranch in the free state of Florida. Now look around you. Look at your grocery bill. Look at your city streets. Look at the news. What do you see? Most people see incompetence. They look at the mayor, the governor, the president, and they laugh. They say, wow, these people are idiots. They don't know how to run an economy. They don't know how to secure a border. They are ruining the country by mistake. I need you to understand something very dark and very important right now. These people are not stupid. They are not incompetent, and they are not making mistakes. You are looking at a burning building and asking, why is the fireman so bad at putting out the fire? You are assuming their goal is to put out the fire. But what if, just what if, their goal was to burn the building down? What if the chaos, the crime, the inflation, and the flooding of your nation with millions of people who cannot support themselves? What if that isn't a failure of the system? What if that is the function of the system? For the last 3 years, you have felt like you are losing your mind. You, the productive man, the taxpayer, the guy who actually keeps the lights on, you are working harder than ever. You are paying more taxes than ever, and yet the services you pay for are vanishing. The police don't come. The roads are full of potholes. The schools are indoctrination camps. And your money is worth less every single day. You feel like you are being squeezed, like you are being targeted. Well, I have news for you. You are the target. This is not an accident. This is a military-grade political strategy designed in 1966. It has a name, and once you hear it, you will never look at the news the same way again. Welcome to the Cloward Piven strategy. Let's go back to 1966, Columbia University. 2 sociologists, Richard Cloward and Francis Fox Piven, wrote an article in The Nation magazine. It was titled, "The Weight of the Poor, a Strategy to End Poverty." Sounds nice, right? End poverty. Who could be against that? But when you read the fine print, you realize their definition of ending poverty wasn't about creating jobs. It wasn't about building businesses. It wasn't about making men strong and self-reliant. No, their plan was to destroy capitalism by weaponizing the welfare system. Here was their theory. They believed that the only way to get a socialist utopia, a guaranteed annual income, where the government sends everyone a check for breathing, was to force the collapse of the current system. They knew they couldn't vote for socialism. Americans in the 1960s were too proud. Men wanted to work. Families were strong. The Protestant work ethic was still alive. So Cloward and Piven proposed a hack, a glitch in the matrix. They wrote that if they could get every single person who was theoretically eligible for welfare to sign up at the exact same time, they could bank up the system. They called it overloading the bureaucracy. Imagine a bridge. It's built to hold 100 cars. Cloward and Piven said, let's put 10,000 cars on it right now. Why? Not because they wanted the cars to cross safely, because they wanted the bridge to snap. They wrote explicitly that this weight would cause a fiscal collapse in state and local governments. New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, they would run out of money. The Democratic coalition of white workers and unions would turn against each other, fighting for scraps. And out of that chaos, the federal government would have to step in, declare a national emergency, and take total control. Order out of chaos. This is the part that will make your blood boil. To execute this strategy, you need foot soldiers, but you don't use an army with guns. You use an army of dependents. Cloward and Piven didn't view the poor as people to be uplifted. They viewed them as battering rams. They encouraged activists to go into the ghettos and recruit people to sign up for benefits. Demand everything, they said. Demand special grants. Demand heavy furniture allowances. Demand rent checks. The goal was to make the system impossible to administer, to make the paperwork so thick, the line so long, and the cost so high that the city would just give up and send checks to everyone. And guess what? It worked. From 1966 to 1975, the welfare rolls in New York City didn't just grow. They exploded. The number of people on the dole doubled, then tripled. Did the economy get worse? No. Unemployment was actually low in the late 60s. The poverty didn't change. The behavior changed. They successfully convinced millions of people that the state owed them a living. And what happened in 1975? New York City went bankrupt. The president had to bail them out. The fiscal crisis you read about in history books wasn't an economic accident. It was a planned demolition. Now, why am I telling you about 1975? Because they are doing it again. But this time, they aren't just using the people already here. They ran out of locals to overload the system. The American working class, even the poor ones, are still too independent. We still have a culture that says shame on you if you don't work. So, if you want to break the system in 2026, where do you get the weight? Where do you find millions of people who have no concept of limited government, no concept of contribution, and who will immediately need housing, food, healthcare, and education the moment they arrive? You import them. This is the ultra-spicy truth that nobody wants to say out loud. The border crisis is not a failure of security. It is a success of strategy. Every single person crossing that border is a Cloward Piven foot soldier. Think about the logistics. You cannot flood a first world nation with millions of third world migrants without breaking the infrastructure. It is mathematically impossible. These people do not speak the language. They cannot legally work. They have no assets. So who pays? You pay. Specifically, the native-born male taxpayer. Let's look at the stats. Who puts more into the system than they take out? White men, Asian men, the productive, working-class engine of this country. You are the host. And the strategy is to attach so many parasites to the host that the host dies. And I don't blame the migrants. If someone offered me free hotels, free debit cards, and free health care to walk across a line, I'd probably do it too. I blame the architects. They are deliberately importing a population that is dependent by default. Why? Because a dependent population votes for the hand that feeds them. A self-reliant man, a man with a 401k, a house, and a gun, votes for freedom. He votes for leave me alone. But a man who lives in government housing and eats government food, he votes for more government. They are replacing you with them, not just demographically but politically. They are importing a permanent voting bloc that ensures socialism reigns forever. Look at New York City right now. Look at Chicago. The mayors are screaming, "We have no room. We have no money. The schools are full." They are cutting police budgets to pay for migrant hotels. They are kicking kids out of recreation centers to house grown men from Venezuela. The system is overloading. The bridge is snapping. And what are these mayors asking for? Federal aid, federal bailouts, federal control. It is the Cloward Piven playbook, line by line. Break the city, blame the crisis, demand the federal takeover. So where does this end? When the system finally snaps, when the dollar collapses under the weight of this debt, when the cities burn because the police have been defunded to pay for welfare, what happens? They won't say, "Sorry, we messed up. Let's go back to the Constitution." No, they will say, "Capitalism has failed. The old way doesn't work. We need a great reset." They will introduce the universal basic income, but it won't be free money. It will be a digital allowance, central bank digital currency. They will say, "Since the economy is destroyed, here is your monthly credits. You can eat, you can live, but you must behave." That is the trap. The Cloward Piven strategy is designed to kill the middle class, to kill the independent man, because as long as you can feed yourself, you can say no. But once they break the economy and you are standing in the breadline with everyone else, you have no voice. I know this is heavy. I know this makes you angry. It should. You are being robbed. You are being replaced. And you are being gaslit into thinking it's humanitarianism. It is not charity. It is warfare. So what do? Do you vote harder? Maybe. But the demographic ship is sailing fast. The real answer is to become ungovernable. Not by rioting, that's what they want, but by unplugging. Build parallel systems. Get out of the cities. Stop keeping your money in their banks. Stop sending your kids to their Prussian schools. They are trying to sink the ship. Your job is to build a life raft that they can't poke a hole in. The system is designed to break. Make sure you aren't holding the bag when it does. I put the link to the original 1966 Cloward Piven article in the description. Don't take my word for it. Read their own words. They admitted it 60 years ago. Stop funding your own destruction. But there is one final piece of this puzzle you need to understand. I've told you why they are doing this. I've told you what the goal is, but I haven't told you how it is physically possible. Because you might be asking, how do millions of people suddenly decide to walk thousands of miles from the third world to the first world at the exact same time? Do you think this is organic? Do you think they just looked at a map? No. This brings us to the logistics of the invasion. If you go to the Darien Gap, the treacherous jungle between South and Central America, you won't find starving people stumbling through the mud alone. You will find a highway run by non-governmental organizations. You will find camps funded by the United Nations. You will find maps printed by charities. You will find prepaid debit cards loaded with cash. This is not a migration. It is a travel package. And who pays for it? You do. Through your tax dollars that are funneled into federal grants, which are then handed to these NGOs under the guise of humanitarian aid. They are using your own money to ship your replacement to your doorstep. And it's not just the government, it's corporate America. Why do the biggest companies in the world support this? Why do they donate to these causes? Because they want the exact same thing the socialists want, but for a different reason. The socialists want voters. The corporations want serfs. They want cheap labor. They want a desperate underclass that will work for nothing and never complain. They want to break the back of the American middle-class worker who demands a living wage. It is a pincer movement. The government squeezes you from the top with taxes. The corporations squeeze you from the bottom with cheap labor. And the Cloward Piven strategy provides the human ammunition to do both. But the strategy isn't just about money, it's about law. And this brings us to the most terrifying concept of all. Anarcho-tyranny. You have probably noticed something strange lately. If a homeless addict punches a grandma in the subway, he is released without bail in 2 hours. But if you, a tax-paying citizen, use a weapon to defend yourself or your family, you are arrested, charged, and bankrupt by legal fees. Why? This is called anarcho-tyranny. It was defined by the thinker Sam Francis. It means the state creates anarchy for the criminal class, but imposes tyranny on the law-abiding class. This is not an accident. It is a necessary part of the Cloward-Piven strategy. Think about it. The criminal and the dependent are the foot soldiers of the state. They need the state to survive. Therefore, the state protects them. You, on the other hand, are the rival. You are the independent power center. You don't need the state. Therefore, the state must crush you. They refuse to enforce the law against the chaos agents because the chaos is the point, but they enforce the law ruthlessly against you to demoralize you, to make you afraid, to make you feel like the system has turned against you, because it has. They want you to feel so unsafe, so surrounded by crime and disorder, that you finally beg them to take away your freedom just to make it stop. That is the goal. So now you have the full picture, the economics, the logistics, and the law. The trap is set. The only question is, are you going to walk into it? You've got to unplug, opt out, and build your life outside this wicked and insane system. Good luck out there, soldiers. Thanks for watching.